of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amin. Terima kasih Pak Kris
Sama-sama.
dan juga selamat malam, shalom teman-teman semua yang malam hari ini berkumpul secara online. Kita bersama-sama mau mengikuti pembelajaran malam hari ini. Selamat malam yang bergabung lewat Zoom dan juga lewat YouTube. Malam hari ini kita akan belajar tentang sejarah Islam, tentang historical problem with Islam. Ini topik kita malam hari ini bersama dengan narasumber yang pastinya sudah sering kita tonton videonya dan kita simak pengajarannya. Beliau ini juga adalah pendiri dari Pathfinder Center for Apologetics dan sudah sekitar 38 tahun melayani dalam penginjilan. Langsung saja kita sapa beliau, seorang apologet Kristen yaitu Jay Smith. Hello.
Hello.
Jay. Shalom, how are you today?
Well, very good. We're on opposite ends of the earth. You're 12 hours different from me. You're going to bed. I'm just waking up.
Yes, it's evening in Indonesia now.
Yep, and it's just the early morning here on the East Coast of United States. Listen, this is exciting to be with you. I'm glad you invited me. You're the kind of people I love. You're the ones who've come out of Islam. You understand it probably better than almost any other people that I work with because you've been there. You understand also the urgency of the task before us. You're in an amazing country, the largest Muslim country on earth. So in some ways, you're the best people to get equipped with this information.
Yes, and it's also an honor for us to have you tonight in this Zoom session, and we are also proud that you, as a Christian, you know more about Islam than us who have Islamic background. We also want to learn more about historical problem with Islam, and also in this session we have Sister Sophia who will translate you. And all right, we start this session. Jay Smith. Please, time is yours.
Okay, I will try to keep my sentences brief so that Sophia can jump in and go ahead and say what I want to say.
Okay, Brother Jay Smith, I'm ready to translate for you. You want to share screen?
Now, hold on a minute. Let's see. How do we do this? You're just the two of us. You're saying share screen. Let's do that. Where are you? I don't see you in this panoply of I can't find your name there.
Sofiatul, Christian Indonesian Apologetics. Translator.
Her name is Sofiatul, translator.
I'm still looking for you. Oh, CIA Apologetics, that's you? No, that's
yes, we are CIA.
Many of us doesn't open the camera because it's live on YouTube now, and it's better for us to protect our identity. Not
got you. Okay, all right, then just keep me. Let's keep it to speaker view then. So it's just me. It's best that my face gets up there. So we'll just keep this at speaker view then. All right, listen. I want to say this is an exciting time. This part and this section and this material is probably some of the most damaging material that I'm going to be introducing, but you all need to know it.
Iya, ini mungkin adalah materi yang paling menarik ya, yang akan saya perkenalkan pada malam hari ini kepada teman-teman semuanya. Tapi ini juga materi yang paling akan menohok sekali nih untuk Islam.
And for those of you, since you have come out of Islam, this will be brand new to you.
Dan mungkin bagi teman-teman yang sudah keluar dari Islam, mungkin materi ini menjadi materi yang sangat baru, yang baru akan Anda dengar.
The reason why, what I'm going to be introducing this evening there in Indonesia would not have been taught, you would not have heard about, this would be something you would not come across, certainly not in Islamic circles.
Jadi materi yang akan saya bawakan pada malam hari ini mungkin teman-teman semuanya belum pernah dengar ya, karena materi ini mungkin belum pernah diajarkan sebelumnya di dalam dunia pembelajaran kita mengenai Islam.
Islam does not ask questions of its history.
Islam tidak pernah mempertanyakan mengenai sejarahnya.
It doesn't feel that it needs to.
Orang-orang Muslim mungkin tidak perlu mengetahui apa sih sejarah Islam. Mereka tidak perlu tahu tentang itu.
Muslims have always gone to the traditions, and I'll explain that when we get into the talk itself, and they've assumed that the traditions are true.
Orang-orang Muslim biasanya mendengar cerita-cerita mengenai sejarah Islam dari tradisi-tradisi yang selalu diperdengarkan kepada mereka ya. Nanti saya jelaskan apa maksudnya tradisi-tradisi Islam itu.
So the history of Islam is already there. Why question it?
Jadi menurut mereka sejarah Islam sudah mereka ketahui semuanya, kenapa harus dipertanyakan lagi?
So that's always, almost a given that you do not critique how Islam began, you do not critique who Muhammad is, and you do not critique the Quran.
Jadi mereka sudah diberikan sejarah ya, cerita-cerita mengenai sejarah Islam. Jadi mereka tidak bisa mengkritik bagaimana sejarahnya Islam itu dimulai, ya kemudian sejarah mengenai Muhammad dan sejarah mengenai Quran. Jadi mereka tidak bisa mempertanyakan itu.
But I'm going to be doing all three.
Malam ini saya akan membuka semua tiga hal ini.
Now, I'm not going to be doing them all in this talk because that would take me days.
Ya, saya nggak akan bicarakan semuanya ya, nanti bisa berhari-hari ini bahan materinya.
But over successive talks, as we come back and as I come in the future, I will be critiquing not only the Quran and these, you see here, the qira'ats, and you can see the early manuscript, one of the earliest manuscripts. I will do doing these at another time.
Ya, nanti lain waktu saya akan bicara mengenai yang kalian lihat di sini ya, buku-buku di belakang saya ini mengenai qiraat Quran ya. Kemudian manuskrip Quran, kita akan bicarakan itu lain waktu.
What I am critiquing and what I'm sharing with you today is how did Islam begin?
Tapi yang mau saya kritik malam hari ini dan materi yang mau saya bawakan pada malam hari ini adalah bagaimana sejarah Islam itu dimulai.
So let's get right into it.
Oke, kita akan mulai.
And whoops, I need to bring my thing back up again. Let's do this one more time. So as we go ahead and start, let me share screen with you. As you can see, the story that we're talking about today is the quest for the 7th century Muhammad. I'm sorry, this is all in English, so we'll have to get the translation later on.
Oke, ini semua materi saya dalam bahasa Inggris ya, nanti bisa diterjemahkan. Materi kita topik pada malam hari ini adalah pencarian mengenai Muhammad pada abad ke-7.
Now, we're going to be asking this quest for the 7th century Muhammad.
Kita akan mulai mempertanyakan dan mulai mencari apakah ada Muhammad pada abad ke-7.
There are 5 areas that I'm going to be investigating.
Ada 5 hal yang kita mau selidiki lebih lanjut.
First of all, starting with that quest.
Kita akan mulai dengan pencarian mengenai siapa Muhammad.
Then moving to the coins.
Kemudian kita akan bicara mengenai sejarah mata uang atau koin-koin.
We'll then be going to the rock inscriptions.
Kita akan bicara masuk ke dalam prasasti atau inskripsi.
Other historical problems.
Kita akan masuk ke dalam masalah-masalah lainnya di dalam sejarah pada abad ke-7.
And then we're going to look at the claims that the Muslims make.
Ya, lalu kita akan mulai melihat apa yang Muslim klaim.
And I'm going to debunk every one of them. These are the major claims that they make for how Islam began against this material, and I'll debunk each one of them.
Dan saya akan mencoba memusnahkan semua klaim-klaim ini ya.
Okay, let's get right into it. So let's start with how, at least what Muslims claim about how it all began.
Kita akan lihat apa yang Muslim klaim mengenai sejarah Islam.
Now, the Muslims I'm talking about are the 99.9% of all Muslims in the world.
Ya, Muslim yang saya bicarakan di sini adalah persentasenya sekitar 99 Muslim yang ada di dunia ya. 99%.
We have the radical Muslims on the right, we have the nominal Muslims in the middle, and you have your liberal Muslims on the left. Those are the 3 major groups of Muslims: radical, nominal, liberal.
Ya, kita akan bicara mengenai ada Muslim yang radikal ya atau Muslim garis keras, kemudian Muslim yang ya biasa-biasa saja standar ya, kemudian ada Muslim yang ya tidak tahu apa-apa.
So I'm talking about the radical and the nominal. These 2 groups here. We're not talking about the liberals. The liberals are the ones that are here in the West. They have left Islam. Many of them are very disillusioned with Islam. They would not make these 6 claims.
Ya, jadi kalau kita tidak akan bicara mengenai muslim-muslim yang liberal ya atau muslim-muslim yang moderat ya, karena mereka kebanyakan sudah meninggalkan Islam di negara-negara Barat. Kita akan bicara mengenai dua grup saja ini ya, muslim yang garis keras dan muslim yang mengikuti tradisi atau muslim yang standar.
So they say the Jews and Christians corrupted their book and their God. We are the ones at fault. We corrupted it. Therefore, Muhammad was sent to correct those corruptions.
Jadi Muslim mengklaim selama ini ya bahwa orang-orang Yahudi dan orang-orang Kristen ini sudah memalsukan kitab-kitabnya ya. Karena itu Muslim itu selalu berpikiran bahwa Islam ini datang untuk mengkoreksi kitab-kitab sebelumnya.
And between 610 and 632 AD, that 22-year period, he was then given the Quran, this one right here, supposedly this book right here in that 22-year period, to correct that which had gone wrong earlier.
Ya, jadi antara tahun 610 sampai 632, jadi selama 23 tahun ya, ketika Muhammad menerima wahyu ini, Muhammad ingin mengkoreksi ya, ketika dia menerima Quran, mengkoreksi kitab-kitab yang menurut dia salah sebelumnya.
He lived in Mecca to begin with, was born there in 570, started receiving his revelations in 610, and from 610 to 622, he received what they know as what they call the Meccan revelations, the Meccan surahs.
Ya, jadi Muhammad kira-kira lahir tahun 570 di Mekah ya. Kemudian antara tahun 610 sampai 622 ya, selama kurang lebih hampir 12 tahun, dia menerima wahyu-wahyu pertamanya, yaitu ada di Mekah yang kita sebut dengan surat-surat Makkiyah.
And from 622 he then moves up to Medina, and from 622 to 632, the last 10 years of his life and his ministry, he then received the Medinan revelations, which are the first part of this book.
Ya, kemudian setelah itu tahun 622 sampai 632, kira-kira 10 tahun terakhir dari kehidupan Muhammad, dia pindah ke Madinah, dia menerima wahyu-wahyu di sana yang disebut dengan surat-surat Madaniyah ya, yang merupakan bagian pertama daripada Quran yang kita pegang sekarang.
And Muslims would say that this book that he received from 610 to 632 is exactly the same book, and it has existed for 1400 years unchanged.
Muslim mengklaim bahwa Quran yang dipegang sekarang ini ya tetap sama selama 1400 tahun, tidak ada perubahan.
They would also say that Mecca, where he lived, where he was born, where he spent his first 50 years, is or has always been the center of the world, the center of history.
Muslim juga mengklaim bahwa Mekah ya, di mana Muhammad menghabiskan 50 tahun pertama dari kehidupannya, itu merupakan pusat dari dunia ya, suatu kota yang kota besar gitu ya, pusat perkotaan di situ.
Now,
Dan pusat sejarah.
let's look at a timeline.
Yuk kita lihat rentang waktunya di sini.
Islam's emergence according to the Islamic traditions.
Ya, bagaimana Islam ini muncul ya, menurut sejarah tradisi Islam.
Okay, there Muhammad was born 570.
Muhammad lahir di tahun 570.
The Quran is first revealed in 610.
Quran pertama kali diwahyukan tahun 610.
In 621, he gets up in the middle of the night, is woken up, told to get on the back of a winged horse called the Burak. He is flown up to Jerusalem, and at Jerusalem, he then goes up to the seven heavens, receives 50 prayers, which he brings down to 5 prayers, returns to Jerusalem, and then comes back to Mecca.
Tahun 621 Muhammad dibangunkan ya kira-kira pada tengah malam hari, kemudian dia terbang ya, naik kuda yang bersayap begitu, terbang ke Yerusalem, kemudian dari Yerusalem dia naik lagi ke surga, terima 50 perintah untuk sholat, kemudian tik turun lah ya, turun perintah sholatnya, lalu dia turun lagi ke Yerusalem dan balik lagi ke Mekah.
In 622 then, he moves from Mecca up to Medina with roughly 80, maybe 200. The traditions are not clear, exact number, how many believers he took with him to Medina.
Kemudian tahun 622 dia hijrah ya dari Mekah ke Madinah. Kira-kira kurang lebih ada 80 atau 200 orang yang dibawa pengikutnya pada waktu itu. Tidak begitu jelas ya, tradisi mengatakan ada yang 80, ada yang 200, tidak begitu clear berapa pengikutnya pada waktu itu.
Then in 630, he comes back to Mecca from Medina, conquers Mecca without firing a shot.
Lalu kemudian tahun 630 Muhammad kembali lagi dari Madinah ke Mekah, kemudian menaklukkan kota Mekah itu ya tanpa tantangan apa-apa.
And then he dies in 632.
Kemudian dia mati di tahun 632.
Some say that he was poisoned. We don't really know, but according to the traditions, he died. When he died, the Quran had not yet been written down.
Beberapa mengatakan dia mati karena diracun ya, tapi kita juga tidak jelas mengenai hal ini. Dan sejarah mengatakan ya, tradisi Islam mengatakan pada waktu dia mati, Quran ini bahkan belum dikumpulkan.
The next 2 years, Abu Bakr comes to power.
2 tahun kemudian Abu Bakar berkuasa.
And he is the one that writes the first Quran down, the first book, the first recension, as we call it, of the Quran.
Ya, kemudian Abu Bakar ini mencoba menyatukan ya Quran ini, atau dia menulis Quran yang pertama kali.
You then have Umar, who comes to power from 634 to 644.
Kemudian Umar berkuasa antara tahun 634 dan 644.
Followed by Uthman, who rules from 644 to 656.
Lalu diikuti oleh Uthman yang berkuasa ya atas dari tahun 644 sampai 656.
And during his reign, the second Quran, or the second recension, is compiled by a man named Zaid ibn Thabit. And that is the Quran they say that we have in our hand today. This Quran that I am sharing here, this is the Uthmanic Quran. This is the Uthmanic recension. This is the canonized text.
Ya, pada masa pemerintahan Utsman inilah ya, maka Quran-Quran itu dikumpulkan atau dikanonize ya pada waktu itu di bawah seseorang yang bernama Said bin Thabit pada waktu itu. Dan Muslim mengatakan Quran yang dipegang sekarang ini adalah Quran versi Utsman pada waktu itu.
And they say that is 652.
Dan mereka mengatakan ini tahun 652.
And then he is killed, and Ali, the adopted son or the cousin of Muhammad, he then takes power and he rules for 5 years. He is killed then in 661, and Muawiyah takes over and starts the Umayyad Caliphate.
Ya, kemudian Ali waktu itu mulai berkuasa ya, ini adalah anak angkatnya ya atau menantunya daripada Muhammad ini. Kemudian dia mati tahun 611, pada waktu itu juga dibunuh Ali ini.
So that's the history. That's the early history of Islam according to Islamic traditions.
Ini tadi adalah sekilas sejarah mengenai awal-awal kemunculan Islam menurut sejarah Islam.
Now, what's the problem with this?
Ya, sekarang kita lihat apa masalahnya di sini.
The problem is this. Everything I have just told you, everything I have said for the last 10 minutes does not come from the 7th century at all. Does not come from the same century that Muhammad lived.
Masalahnya adalah yang tadi saya katakan selama 10 menit ini ya, mengenai sejarah awal Islam menurut Islam tradisi Islam, ini tidak muncul daripada abad ke-7.
So, hold on a minute. You mean, am I suggesting therefore that everything we know about who Muhammad was, when he was born, what he did, where he lived, when he moved from Mecca, Medina, when he received the Quran, the stories of Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, are you saying all of this is not written down during the same period that he lived or the same century he lived?
Ya, tunggu dulu tadi ya, kata Brother J. Smith katanya. Tunggu dulu, berarti tadi cerita-cerita tadi yang orang muslim selalu katakan ya mengenai sejarahnya sendiri, Muhammad lahirnya di mana, kapan dia lahir, kapan dia hijrah, kapan dia Isra Mi'raj, naik kemudian kapan dia ke Medina, kemudian mengenai Umar, Abu Bakar, Utsman, Ali tadi, itu tidak ditulis pada abad ke-7, tidak ditulis pada zaman yang sama pada waktu Muhammad hidup.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Ya, itulah yang Brother J. Smith mau katakan.
Let's go back and let's look at another timeline.
Sekarang kita lihat lagi rentang waktu lainnya.
Okay, Muhammad dies in 632. There you can see it on the screen.
Ya, sekarang kita lihat Muhammad meninggal tahun 632 Masehi.
Now, where do we get the story about Muhammad? Where do we get his biography? Where do we get the Sirah? The Sirah to Rasulullah. There it is, the Sirah, which means the biography of the Prophet of God.
Lalu dari mana kita bisa mendapatkan biografi mengenai Muhammad atau cerita mengenai Muhammad ya, sirat Rasulullah? Itu kapan ditulisnya? Kapan pertama kali kita tahu mengenai siapa nih Muhammad?
Well, we're told it's Ibn Ishaq. There he is. Look at Ibn Ishaq. You can see him on the screen.
Ya, kita diberitahu mereka mendapatkan cerita ini dari Ibn Ishaq.
Ibn Ishaq, but look at his dates, 765.
Kita lihat tanggalnya, 765 Masehi.
Muhammad died in 632.
Muhammad matinya 632.
That's 130 years later.
Ini 113 tahun kemudian.
But hold on a minute. It's not he that we get the material from. We don't get anything from him. We know nothing about Muhammad or anything that happens from that man at all.
Tapi tunggu sebentar. Ya, kita tidak punya materi apapun yang ditulis oleh Ibn Ishaq. Kita tidak mendapatkan pengetahuan kita tentang Muhammad dari Ibn Ishaq.
We have to go to Ibn Hisham. Look at his dates. Look at him. I've just brought him up.
Kita mengetahuinya dari Ibn Hisham. Sekarang
So,
kita lihat tanggalnya.
Ibn Hisham tells us that he is the one that writes down the Sirah, the biography of Muhammad, but he takes what Ibn Ishaq says, throws most of it away, and only retains that which he likes.
Jadi Ibn Hisham ya tahun 833 Masehi ini mengatakan dia menulis syirat Rasulullah ya atau biografi Muhammad ini dari Ibn Ishaq dan dia membuang sebagian besar materi dari Ibn Ishaq ini dan dia hanya menulis ulang apa yang dia suka.
Oh, so let's get rid of Ibn Ishaq.
Ya, oke, sekarang kita singkirkan dulu Ibn Ishaq.
Yeah, I'm just gonna stop sharing screen here just to show you what I mean. See this book here? This is the biography of Muhammad. Here it is. This is the classical book that everybody use. I would suggest you use it as well. This is the story of Muhammad.
Lihat nih buku yang saya pegang ya, ini kehidupan Muhammad, ini cerita mengenai Muhammad. Ini orang-orang selalu mengacu kepada sumber buku ini ya. Saya harapkan Anda juga punya buku ini ya. Ini translasi dari Ibn Ishaq Sirat Rasulullah.
And I'm sure that it is translated into Indonesian. You can get it on Amazon. You can probably get it at your bookstore. This one I like the best because it is translated by Alfred Guillaume from Arabic into English. He is considered to be the best translator of the Sirah from Arabic.
Ya, jadi saya rasa juga sudah diterjemahkan di dalam bahasa Indonesia ya. Anda bisa beli di online di toko-toko buku atau Amazon. Tapi saya suka yang ini teman-teman karena diterjemahkan oleh Guillaume ya. Jadi dia adalah menerjemahkan langsung dari Arab ke Inggris dan dia termasuk salah satu penerjemah yang terbaik.
But look at this. This is what's interesting. On the cover it says a translation of Ibn Ishaq's Siratul Rasulullah. It's translation of Ibn Ishaq's Siratul Rasulullah.
Tapi lihat judulnya di sini ya, judulnya adalah terjemahan dari Ibn Ishaq ya,
Did I
Sirat
not
Rasulullah.
just get done saying that this is not from Ibn Ishaq, that this is from Ibn Hisham?
Bukankah tadi saya mengatakan ini bukan dari Ibn Ishaq ya, tapi Ibn Hisham.
That's true.
Ya, itu benar.
This entire book, not one word of it comes from Ibn Ishaq. So what is his name doing on the cover?
Jadi seluruh buku ini bukan tulisannya Ibn Ishaq. Jadi kenapa namanya ada di judul bukunya?
Alfred Guillaume didn't do that.
Alfred Guillaume yang melakukan hal itu.
Oxford University Press did that.
Oxford University yang mencetaknya.
And this is something you need to be aware of.
Nah, ini sesuatu yang Anda harus waspadai.
This is called dimitude. This is called political correctness.
Ini namanya ya apa ya? Dia mau membenarkan secara politik lah.
What has happened is any scholar knows that Ibn Ishaq did not write the Sirah because nothing has come from him that we have today. We don't have anything from Ibn Ishaq.
Semua para ilmuwan ya, para cendekiawan itu tahu ya bahwa mereka itu tidak mendapatkan biografi Muhammad ini dari Ibn Ishaq. Tidak ada tulisan Ibn Ishaq yang dipunyai sampai saat ini.
But Muslims don't want you to know that.
Tapi Muslim tidak mau Anda tahu mengenai hal ini.
They don't want you to know that this book is actually written by Ibn Hisham 70 years later.
Mereka Muslim tidak pengen tahu bahwa buku ini yang nulis adalah Ibn Hisham ya, kira-kira 70 tahun kemudian.
70 years, which makes it 833 AD, not 765 AD.
Ya, jadi bukunya ditulis tahun 833 Masehi ya.
So let's go back to the timeline. You'll see why this is important. Remember, I said let's go and let's see what let's go back this direction. Ibn Ishaq dies in 765. According to Oxford Unity Press, he was the one that wrote this, but nothing comes from here. It all comes from Ibn Hisham, who dies in 833.
Ya, jadi tadi ya Ibn Ishaq kita lihat di timeline ini ya, di rentang waktunya ini meninggal tahun 765. Jadi orang-orang Muslim berkata, oh ini tulisannya Ibn Ishaq. Ya, padahal kalau kita melihat ini adalah tulisannya Ibn Hisham yang meninggal tahun 833 Masehi.
This will come important towards the end of my talk today because you will see why this is significant. So that's why I get rid of Ibn Ishaq and I keep Ibn Hisham there so that you can see the earliest biography we have of Muhammad is Ibn Hisham. We don't have anything earlier than Ibn Hisham.
Oke. Dan nanti kita lihat ya pada akhir pembelajaran kita akan melihat betapa pentingnya, signifikannya kita mengetahui hal ini. Karena itu tadi saya menyingkirkan nih Ibn Ishaq ya, karena biografi yang paling awal yang kita bisa tahu tentang Muhammad adalah dari Ibn Hisham.
Now, we do have another biography called by a man named Al-Waqidi, but he dies after Ibn Hisham. He dies in 835.
Kita punya penulis biografi lainnya mengenai Muhammad, namanya Al-Waqidi, tapi dia meninggal tahun 835 Masehi ya, setelah Ibn Hisham.
So the earliest biography we have of Muhammad comes 200 years after his death.
Jadi biografi yang paling pertama kali yang kita bisa tahu tentang kehidupan Muhammad itu 200 tahun setelah kematian Muhammad.
What about the saying, the hadith? What about them? Are they also problematic? Are they also late?
Bagaimana sekarang tentang hadits atau perkataan-perkataan Muhammad? Apakah ini juga ditulis belakangan?
I'll put them in blue.
Ya, ini saya warnai biru.
So the earliest hadith we have for what Muhammad said is from Al-Bukhari.
Hadits yang pertama kali yang kita punya adalah dari Al-Bukhari.
He is given 600,000 of what they call akbar. That means sayings, these akbars, 600,000, and he is to look at them and throw away that which ones are no good, and he whittles them down from 600,000 down to 7,397.
Oke, jadi Al-Bukhari ini menseleksi dari 600.000 hadits, kemudian ditik ya, diperkecil jadi tinggal 7.397 hadits saja yang dia seleksi.
So from 600,000 down to 7,400. Let's just say 7,400.
Ya, jadi dari 600.000 hadits dia seleksi, ya kita katakan saja tinggal 7.400 hadits yang akhirnya dimasukkan di dalam Al-Bukhari.
Which means he throws out 98% of it and only keeps 2%. Only 2% is what he retains.
Artinya Al-Bukhari ini membuang 98% hadits-hadits itu dan dia hanya memasukkan 2% saja dari semua hadits-hadits itu.
And that is the 9 volumes that we have today of Al-Bukhari is just 2% of what he was given to then look at and trash what he didn't like.
Nah, inilah ya 9 volume dari buku Al-Bukhari yang kita punya itu ternyata hanya 2% saja dari hadis-hadis. Dia membuang hampir sebagian besar hadis-hadis itu dan dia hanya memasukkan yang dia suka saja di hadis-hadisnya.
And there are others who do the same thing.
Orang lain banyak juga yang melakukan hal yang sama.
Sahih Muslim died in 875. You have Al-Tirmidhi who died in 884. You have Ibn Majah, who died in 887. And you have Abu Dawud, who died in 899. And then you have An-Nasai, who died in 915. These are the 6 most authoritative of all the hadith writers.
Sekarang kita lihat ya, Sahih Muslim yang meninggal tahun 875, At-Tirmidzi tahun 884 dia meninggal, Ibn Majah 887, Abu Daud 899, An-Nisai 915 Masehi. Ini adalah ke-6 hadis yang otentik yang diakui oleh orang Muslim.
So those are the 6 hadith compilers. They all come after Al-Bukhari. There's nothing earlier than Al-Bukhari, which was written down that we know of for the hadith, for the sayings of Muhammad.
Jadi ini adalah 6 hadis yang autentik ya. Mereka lah yang mengkompilasi atau menyusun ya semua perkataan-perkataan atau hadis daripada Muhammad ini. Semuanya itu sesudah Al-Bukhari. Jadi yang paling awal yang kita kenal hadisnya adalah Al-Bukhari.
But look at his dates, 870.
Kita lihat tanggalnya, tahun 870.
That's the late 9th century.
Ini akhir abad ke-9.
That's 240 years after Muhammad dies. Al-Bukhari writes this down.
Jadi sekitar 240 tahun
Now, we have
setelah Muhammad mati, Al-Bukhari baru.
we have 2 more genre. We have the tafsir and the tahqiq. You can see them in brown up there on the left.
Kita punya 2 lagi ini ya, apa namanya? Ya, kita punya 2 lagi jenisnya ya, tafsir dan tarik.
So the tafsir are the commentaries on the Quran. They explain and they enliven the Quran. The tahqiq would be the histories of mankind. These are the last 2 genres. After the sirah and the hadith come the tafsir and the tahqiq.
Oke, ini adalah 2 hal lainnya ya yang harus kita perhatikan. Tafsir ini adalah komentar mengenai Quran. Jadi mereka lah yang meninterpretasikan Quran ya. Kemudian tarik ini adalah sejarah daripada manusia ya.
Now, there are many who write the tafsir down. You have Baidawi, you have Zamakhshari, you have Suyuti. There are many, many names that come. But the earliest one, the first one to write down any tafsir or any tahqiq is known as Al-Tabari. And look at his date, 923.
Ya, kita punya banyak sekali orang yang menulis tafsir. Ini ada Al-Badawi dan lain-lain ya. Tetapi yang paling awal yang menulis tafsir atau komentar mengenai Quran ini adalah Al-Tabari. Kita lihat tanggalnya.
Okay, Al-Tabari, that's the 10th century. So now we're talking 300 years after Muhammad.
Al-Tabari meninggal tahun 923, ini abad ke-10, jadi 300 tahun setelah Muhammad mati.
Baidawi, Zamakhshari, Suyuti, and all the plethora of other commentators all come after Al-Tabari.
Kalau Badawi, Al-Suyuti, lainnya ya, dan lain-lain itu menulisnya sesudah Al-Tabari.
Here we go. Take a look and look at the time, the difference. And that's why I'm putting up that line there. 200 years between Muhammad and the first of the traditions. The earliest of the traditions would be the Sirah, the biography of Muhammad. That's 200 years, over 200 years that you have the first thing written down about this man.
Sekarang kita lihat rentang waktunya. Berarti dari Muhammad mati ya sampai biografi pertamanya itu ditulis Sirat Rasulullah ya dari Ibn Hisham, ini rentang waktunya kira-kira 200 tahun.
So, I just want to put up there Abdul Malik. Abdul Malik, you're going to see, is the one that introduces Islam as we know it. His date is 692. That's 141 years between the time of Abdul Malik in 692 and Ibn Hisham there in 830.
Sekarang kita lihat Abdul Al-Malik, ini yang pertama kali memperkenalkan Islam ya secara luas, itu tahun 692 Masehi. Kita lihat perbedaan waktunya 141 tahun sampai biografi pertama itu ditulis.
Now, why is this important?
Sekarang mengapa hal ini penting?
Well, you're going to see after today's lecture that it's actually the Abbasids. Look at I've just put them up there. The Abbasids right there at the bottom. They are the second dynasty, the second great empire of Islam. They are the ones that we're going to find out that actually give us the Islam we have today. The Islam that you all have grown up with, the Islam that's all around you, the Islam that's there in Indonesia actually comes from the Abbasids. And that's why I want to put their dates up there.
Oke, sekarang kita lihat ini ya dinasti Abbasian. Ini yang berkuasa pada waktu itu ya, tahun 749 Masehi, 84 tahun ya sebelum Sirat Rasulullah ini ditulis. Dinasti Abbasian inilah yang pada waktu menjadi kerajaan besar yang memperkenalkan Islam yang sebenarnya secara luas, termasuk memperkenalkannya ke Indonesia. Jadi Islam yang kita warisi sekarang ini adalah sebenarnya dari dinasti Abbasian.
So the difference between the Abbasids coming to power in 749 and the earliest date for the earliest Sirah, the biography of Muhammad, is 84 years.
Jadi rentang waktu antara dinasti Abbasian ini naik ya, mulai berkuasa pada waktu itu tahun 749 Masehi sampai pada waktu biografi Muhammad pertama kali ditulis itu jarak waktunya atau rentang waktunya 84 tahun.
Which suggests to me it took them 80 years to finally get their narrative, to finally introduce their prophet, and well, not to introduce him, that's not quite correct, but to introduce the prophet Muhammad that we know today.
I'm sorry, brother, I lost you. Can
Again?
So it took them 84 years or 80 years, as you can see in the timeline there, to finally, for the Abbasids, to finally get the Muhammad that they want to introduce to the world. 80 years, that's hugely important.
Ya, jadi butuh waktu rentang waktu 80 tahun ya sampai kira-kira dinasti Abbasian ketika berkuasa itu dia memperkenalkan siapa itu Muhammad secara luas kepada dunia.
Now you can see why the Muslims would rather this only be 15 years. They would rather it be Ibn Ishaq that the first biography comes to. What I'm saying is no. Ibn Ishaq we don't have anything from Ibn Ishaq. What we have about who this man is does not come for 80 years after the Abbasids start to introduce their Muhammad, their Mecca, their Islam. Because you're going to see Islam as we know it today is an Abbasid invention.
Jadi Muslim itu lebih suka ya kalau mereka mengatakan biografi Muhammad ini dari Ibn Ishaq ya karena jarak waktunya lebih dekat dengan dinasti Abbasian ini. Tapi Brother Jason mengatakan oh tidak ya kita tidak mendapatkan sejarah Muhammad ini dari Ibn Ishaq ya, tetapi dari Ibn Hisham. Dan sebenarnya dinasti Abbasian inilah yang pertama kali yang menyebarkan atau membuat pola gitu ya bahwa apakah Islam itu dan siapakah Muhammad ini. Jadi dinasti Abbasian yang pertama kali memperkenalkan mengenai Muhammad ini secara luas.
Now, almost 90% of every Muslim you talk to does not know what I've just told you.
Nah, sekarang kita lihat ya 90% ya dari Muslim seluruh dunia ini sama sekali tidak tahu nih apa yang saya baru saja katakan kepada teman-teman.
And I would suggest that in Indonesia, the number would be 99%. Almost every Muslim that you meet in Indonesia will not know what I'm showing you on this graph.
Dan saya rasa ya teman-teman ya 99% orang Muslim Indonesia ini tidak tahu sejarah yang baru saja saya katakan kepada Anda.
Now, they will know the name Ibn Hisham, they'll know the name Al-Waqidi, they'll know Al-Bukhari. Every one of them will be using Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Tirmidhi, Majah, Dawud, Nisa. They will know everything about Al-Tabari. These are household names by Muslims who live in Indonesia, but they will think that all of these individuals actually knew Muhammad, that they all lived at the time of Muhammad, that they were all companions of Muhammad. Every Muslim that I talk to assumes whenever I say Ibn Hisham, they think, you're talking about Muhammad's companions.
Jadi orang-orang Muslim itu tahu ya kenal nama-nama ini ya, makanya kenal Ibn Hisham, Al-Waqidi, Al-Bukhari ya, Imam Muslim, At-Tirmidzi, Ibn Majah, Abu Daud, An-Nisai, Al-Tabari. Mereka selalu memakai sumber-sumber yang dari tulisan-tulisan yang ditulis oleh para sejarawan ini ya. Tetapi ya orang-orang Muslim itu selalu berpikir bahwa nama-nama ini itu hidup sejaman dengan Muhammad dan bahkan mereka berpikir mereka ini adalah para sahabat yang selalu menemani Muhammad. Ya kemana-mana sahabatnya Muhammad. Jadi ketika saya bicara dengan orang Muslim mengenai Ibn Hisham misalnya, Muslim selalu berkata, oh kamu bicara mengenai sahabat Rasul.
Now, I have put this so that you can print this out. This is a slide you can print out. We're going to be giving you the PowerPoints. You need to show them this slide. You need to show them this timeline. You need to show them where Muhammad died, where Ibn Hisham died, where Al-Waqidi died, Bukhari, Muslim, Tirmidhi, Majah, Dawud, Nisa, where they all died. That none of them, not one of them lived at the time of Muhammad. Not one of them knew Muhammad. Not one of them lived in the same century as Muhammad.
Ya, jadi teman-teman bisa ya mengeprint ya, men-screenshot ya timeline ini, rentang waktu ini. Anda bisa tunjukkan kepada Muslim ini ya, kapan Muhammad mati ya, kemudian kapan Ibn Hisham dan Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim dan sebagainya. Ini adalah rentang waktu yang sangat penting yang kita bisa tunjukkan mengenai sejarah Islam kepada orang Muslim supaya mereka tahu bahwa para penulis sejarah ini ya, itu tidak hidup sejaman dengan Muhammad. Mereka tidak mengenal Muhammad ya, mereka tidak tahu siapa itu Muhammad ya, mereka tidak pernah bertemu dengan Muhammad.
This is the fact that we have found that destroys many, this is the fact that disillusions many Muslims when they hear this.
Ya, ini adalah fakta yang menghancurkan semua halusinasi Muslim ketika mereka mendengar hal ini.
Now, if we were to look at this, I just wanted to put up Ibn Ishaq there. Ibn Ishaq is the biography they want to talk about, but he is only about 70 years from the time of Ibn Hisham. The one you really need to put up is, of course, the Abbasids. Now, here's the question. Before I do that, let me just ask you all, as Christians, would we have this same problem as Christians? Would we have this difficulty as Christians?
Oke, sebelum saya melanjutkan, saya mau tanya nih kepada teman-teman Kristen yang ada di sini. Apakah kita juga mempunyai masalah yang sama nih, problem yang sama dengan kekristenan?
Everything we know about
Dijawab
Jesus,
teman-teman.
everything we know about Jesus, what he did.
Ya, Oke, apa yang kita ketahui tentang Yesus ya, apa yang dia lakukan dan apa yang Yesus katakan?
Do we, as Christians, do we also go back and have this difficulty? Just put it open if people want to answer.
Oke, open mic, you mean?
Yeah, you can open mics on this.
Oke. Ya, jadi teman-teman bisa langsung interaksi dengan Brother J ya. Jadi apakah kita sebagai orang Kristen, teman-teman, kita punya masalah yang sama nggak nih mengenai sejarah ini?
So, what Jesus said, that would be the hadith of Jesus. Where do we get that from?
Apa yang Yesus katakan, itu artinya hadisnya Yesus ya. Kita dapat dari mana nih perkataan Yesus ini?
From his disciples.
Okay, give me some names.
John,
Matthew, Andreas, Petrus.
Okay, so two of them.
Oh, Peter.
Okay, but Peter didn't really write the Gospels, but there are four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right?
right?
And
Yes.
two of them are eyewitnesses to everything they wrote. Am I correct? Matthew and John.
Yes, correct.
And
Yes,
Mark and
right.
Luke would have got it from the disciples, so they would have been second. They would be not eyewitnesses, but they got it from the eyewitnesses. Am I correct?
Correct. Right.
Okay, now let's look at the biography of Jesus. The biography of Jesus would be Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So you're talking about two of the biographies, two of the sitta of Jesus would be from eyewitnesses or those who got it from the eyewitness. And all four of them would have been living at the time of Jesus, and they would have been living in the same area that Jesus lived. Go ahead.
Oke, tadi ya Brother J tanya ya, apakah kita Kristen punya masalah yang sama nih? Dari mana kita mendapatkan perkataan Yesus atau hadis Yesus ini ya, hadisnya Yesus? 4 penulis Injil ya, Matius, Markus, Lukas, Yohanes. 2 ya, Matius dan Yohanes ini adalah murid langsung daripada Yesus. Kemudian Lukas dan Markus ini bukan murid langsung, tapi dia mendapatkannya dari saksi mata, yaitu artinya mereka ketemu dengan murid-murid itu atau mengumpulkan data-data daripada saksi mata. Ya, jadi kemudian biografi daripada Yesus itu juga ditulis ya oleh orang-orang yang hidup sejaman dengan Yesus, murid-muridnya hidup satu area di mana Yesus pada waktu itu tinggal.
So what about the sayings? Well, that would be the hadith of Jesus. If you look in your Bibles, I don't know if you have them in Indonesian. In many of our English Bibles, whenever Jesus speaks, we put it in red letters. So that would be the hadith of Jesus, what would be in the red letter part of the Gospels.
Ya, jadi kalau perkataan Yesus atau hadis Yesus itu kalau di dalam Alkitab biasanya kalau di dalam Alkitab bahasa Inggris itu diwarnai warna merah. Kalau di dalam bahasa Indonesia, I think we have the same, Brother Jay.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. So the sirah would be the black letter part of the gospel. The hadith would be the red letter of part of the gospel. So you have both the sirah and the hadith written by eyewitnesses or those who got it from the eyewitnesses.
Ya, jadi sirat ya atau biografi Yesus itu ditulisnya dalam tinta yang hitam biasanya ya. Kemudian perkataan Yesus atau hadis Yesus itu ditulisnya warnanya merah ya. Jadi kita punya sirat biografi Yesus dan juga perkataan Yesus ditulis oleh sama-sama ya. Ada 2 saksi mata secara langsung dan ada 2 lagi yang mendapatkannya dari saksi mata.
Now, what about the tafsir and the tahrik?
Bagaimana mengenai tafsir dan tahrik di dalam Kristen?
Well, I would suggest the tafsir, which would be the commentaries about what the gospel say and how to apply it, would be Paul's letters. Paul's letters would be the tafsir because he comments on how to take the gospel of Jesus and apply it in Philippi, and how to apply it in Galatia, and how to apply it in Corinth, and how to apply it in Thessalonica. So every one of his letters are the application of applying it in every city. So that would be the tafsir for the person of Jesus Christ.
Ya, jadi saya menyarankan ya tafsir. Bagaimana dengan tafsir di dalam kekristenan? Tafsir itu
Paul was writing his letters within 15 years of Christ's death. Within 15 years from about 40 to 45 AD up until 62 AD or 65 AD when he was killed, that's when the tafsir of Jesus would have been written out.
Ya, jadi tadi Paulus menerapkan Injil itu ya di tiap-tiap kota yang dia tulis surat ya di Filipi, di Galatia, di Korintus ya di setiap kota. Jadi tafsir ini ditulis Paulus kira-kira dari tahun 40-an sampai tahun 70-an sampai dia mati ya pada waktu itu. Jadi sekitar mungkin 17 tahun dia menulis tafsir-tafsir ini, surat-suratnya.
And then the fourth genre, the tahrik, the history. That I would suggest is the book of Acts. The book of Acts is the Acts of the Apostle, the history of the apostle, the history of the early church. And that would have been written by Luke between 52 AD and 62 AD. So within 30 to 40 years of Christ's death, you already get the history of the early church written down.
Iya, kalau kita bicara mengenai tarik ya, tarik di dalam kekristenan itu adalah kitab Kisah Para Rasul yang ditulis oleh tabib Lukas ya. Jadi Lukas menulisnya antara tahun 52 sampai dengan 72 ya. Jadi dia menulisnya hampir 30 tahun setelah Yesus naik ke surga.
So, here we have on one side you have the hadith, the sirah, the tafsir, and the tahrik of Jesus that is written. But the latest would be 90 AD, so that's 60 years after Christ's death. So within 15 to 60 years of Christ's death, you have all 4 genre, all 4 of the Christian traditions written down.
Ya, jadi kita tadi mempunyai ya sirat ya, ada tafsir, ada tarik daripada Yesus atau hadis ya daripada Yesus juga tadi. Itu kira-kira paling lambat tahun 90 Masehi. Ya, jadi kira-kira dikompil semuanya itu selesai ya keempat hal ini, biografi Yesus, perkataan Yesus ya tariknya, kemudian tafsirnya itu kira-kira 30 tahun, mulai 30 tahun setelah dia naik ke surga sampai sekitar 60 tahun ya 60 tahun ketika Yesus naik ke surga itu sudah selesai dikompilasi atau sudah selesai ditulis.
So that's 15 to 60 years after Christ's death. You have all 4 genres, all 4 traditions written down.
Ya, jadi kira-kira 15 sampai 60 tahun ya setelah Yesus naik ke surga, keempat hal ini sudah ditulis pada waktu itu.
On the other side, the Islamic traditions, you have Ibn Hisham, you have Al-Bukhari, you have Al-Tabari, who are writing in 833, 870, 923. That is 200 to 300 years, nothing earlier than 200 years. So for the same 4 genre, the same 4 Islamic traditions that we're talking about, the Christian traditions, these are 200 to 300 years after Muhammad, whereas these are only 15 to 60 years after Jesus.
Iya, jadi di pihak lain kalau kita melihat sejarah Islam ya, tadi keempat hal ini ya, baik itu sirat, kemudian hadits, tarik maupun tafsirnya itu ditulis kira-kira 200 sampai 300 tahun ya, semua tadi yang ditulis oleh Ibn Hisham ya, Al-Bukhari, Al-Tabari, semuanya ditulis 200 sampai 300 tahun setelah Muhammad mati. Tetapi kalau di Kristen ini sudah selesai kira-kira 15 sampai 60 tahun setelah Yesus naik ke surga. Jadi wow,
I love the way you speak. You're so clipped and you're so perfect. Ding, 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 ding. You're fun to listen to, actually. You've got a beautiful speaking voice. So I'm talking to Sophie there. So you don't have to translate it if you don't want to. Now here,
I know.
we're looking at two completely different categories of authority. Completely different categories of authority.
Oke, di sini tadi kita melihat ya, kita membandingkan dua hal ya, dua hal dari kategori yang berbeda tadi, kategori yang sama kita bandingkan di Islam maupun di Kristen.
The latest is 60 years after Christ's death for our traditions. The earliest is 200 years for the traditions beginning with Muhammad. 60 versus 200.
Ya, jadi kalau kita sudah melihat ya dari 4 kategori yang sama, kalau kita bandingkan di Kristen itu 60 tahun ya setelah Yesus naik ke surga sudah selesai keempat hal tadi yang kita bandingkan, tapi di Islam 200 sampai 300 tahun setelah Muhammad mati baru sejarah Islam itu dimulai atau ditulis.
And if that's not bad enough, what we're going to find out, I haven't introduced that yet, but we're going to find out is that whereas all of those who wrote what Jesus said, did, and how the early church began were living in the same area that Jesus lived in, every one of those who wrote who Muhammad was, what he said, what he did, and how Islam began, all lived hundreds of miles further north. None of them lived in Mecca and Medina.
Kalau hal tadi itu belum cukup buruk ya, belum cukup sangat-sangat berita buruk tadi yang kita pelajari tadi ya. Kita bisa membuktikan bahwa semua penulis-penulis ya tadi yang Matius, Markus, Lukas, Yohanes tadi yang menulis itu di area yang sama. Mereka tinggal hidup di area yang sama ya, di daerah yang sama dengan Yesus. Tetapi para penulis Islam tadi sejarah tadi ya, semua yang menulis tarik tafsir maupun sirat Rasulullah itu hidupnya ratusan mil jauhnya di sebelah utara. Tidak satu pun hidup di kota yang sama dengan Muhammad.
So they lived hundreds of years later and hundreds of miles away.
Jadi para penulis sejarah-sejarah Islam ini ya menulisnya ratusan tahun setelah Muhammad mati dan hidupnya juga tidak sedaerah, tidak satu daerah di area yang sama dengan Muhammad, ratusan mil jauhnya.
Which is more authoritative, the Christian traditions or the Islamic traditions?
Jadi mana nih yang lebih mempunyai otentik ya, yang lebih mempunyai kapasitas untuk mana yang benar, mana yang asli ini teman-teman sejarahnya nih. Apakah yang Kristen tadi yang kita lihat, apakah yang Islam?
There's no comparison.
Tidak bisa dibandingkan teman-teman.
Our gospel of Jesus Christ, his life and his sayings, everything we know about Jesus are so much earlier and so much closer, geographically speaking, than anything that we have in the Islamic traditions, or in this case, here's the Islamic traditions. When you do a comparison, ours is by far much closer to the event. And in the same area, this is much further from the event and nowhere near the same area.
Jadi kalau kita bandingkan ya teman-teman ya, Alkitab kita yang ditulis ya, yang tadi mengandung keempat hal tadi ya, itu ditulisnya itu sejaman dengan Yesus ya, kemudian ditulisnya juga satu daerah area yang sama dengan Yesus, mereka tinggal di tempat yang sama pada waktu Yesus hidup. Tetapi kalau kita bandingkan dengan sejarah Islam, ya itu tinggalnya udah ratusan tahun setelah Muhammad mati, ditulisnya masih tinggalnya ratusan mil jauh lagi dari tempat Muhammad.
Can you then see why we are talking from a much stronger authority?
Jadi kita lihat tadi ya, bahwa kekristenan itu mempunyai klaim yang lebih kuat dibandingkan Islam.
If we were in the same boat, if we had the same situation for Jesus Christ that Muslims have for Muhammad,
kalau kita punya situasi yang sama ya terhadap Yesus ini ya teman-teman ya, buku yang saya pegang ini sama seperti Muhammad,
that would mean that we would know that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John would all have been living in the 3rd century and writing about Jesus in the 3rd century. That's 200 years later. 200 to 300 years later, we would not know anything about Jesus for 200 to 300 years.
Jadi kalau situasinya tadi sama ya teman-teman ya, artinya Matius, Markus, Lukas, Yohanes ya itu baru menulis kira-kira abad ketiga ya 300 tahun setelah Yesus naik ke surga. Berarti selama 200 sampai 300 tahun pertama kita nggak tahu apa-apa tentang Yesus.
Can you then understand why you need to get this into your discussions? You need to get this into your conversations with Muslims.
Ya, sekarang Anda mengerti ya betapa pentingnya kita mendiskusikan hal ini dengan Muslim.
Now, before we go on to the next section, I want to just open it up. If there are any questions that there you may have, let me just see if there are any questions. I'll go ahead and look at the chat myself. So let's
Oke,
start
Ines.
here. Okay, here's a question that comes up. Well, let's start from the beginning and go. Here's a question that comes up. If Al-Bukhari was the earliest, this is from Hannah herself. From Mr. Polandia, sorry. If Al-Bukhari was the earliest collector of the hadith, why did the present-day Muslims claim that he had learned those hadith from Imam Ahmad? You can go ahead and translate that into Indonesian.
Ya, jadi Mr. Polandia tadi bertanya ya, kalau Al-Bukhari ini yang pertama kali menulis ya mengenai hadits, mengapa Al-Bukhari ini mengklaim dia belajar dari Imam Ahmad?
Now, Imam Ahmad, I'm assuming you mean by that, Mr. Polandia, that Ahmad would be the diminutive for Muhammad. So Imam Muhammad means from Muhammad himself. And this is the lie that most of your Muslims are told. They are told, I'm sure I have been to Indonesia, but I've not been there long. You will know this better than me. But everywhere I go in the Muslim world, Muslims are told that Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Ibn Dawud, Majah Tirmidhi, also Ibn Hisham, Al-Waqidi, also Al-Tabari, all these big names, these great men of God were all companions of Muhammad. This is what they're told. This is what they're taught. That is a lie.
Ya, jadi Brother J mengatakan yang kamu maksudkan dengan Imam Ahmad ini apakah Imam Muhammad ya? Jadi mereka menerima dari Muhammad sendiri. Saya belum pernah ke Indonesia, tetapi saya merasa ya kemungkinan di Indonesia itu diajarkan bahwa tadi ya nama-nama besar tadi ya ada Al-Bukhari, ada Imam Muslim, Abu Daud dan sebagainya. Mereka pasti mengatakan ini adalah sahabat Rasul atau sahabat Muhammad dan itu tidaklah benar.
Okay, and so you can see then why, Mr. Polandia, this is something you need to help your Muslim friends with. Show them that timeline. They need to see that timeline. I am not making up those dates. Those dates are from Islamic scholarship. This is what Islam tells us. I did not make up the date for 833 or 835 or 870 or 923. I didn't make up those dates. Those are dates from Muslims themselves. This is the standard narrative that every Muslim who has done scholarship, anybody in academia will know those dates, but not the Muslims on the street. Not the Muslims on the street. Not the Muslims you're going to be talking to.
Ya, jadi tadi ya pentingnya kenapa kita harus menunjukkan rentang waktu ini ketika kita berdiskusi dengan saudara-saudara Muslim kita, ya. Karena Brother tadi mengatakan saya itu tidak yang membuat tanggalnya, ya. Bukan saya nih yang kasih tanggal 833, 847 tadi ya. Semua ini adalah cendekiawan-cendekiawan Muslim sendiri yang memberikan tanggal-tanggal itu. Ya, jadi bukan saya yang membuat-buat ya, semua ini diberikan atau dinarasikan oleh para cendekiawan Muslim. Tetapi kalau orang-orang Muslim di jalanan ya atau orang-orang Muslim abangan ceritanya gitu ya, mereka tuh tidak begitu mengerti mengenai sejarah ini, teman-teman.
So here's a follow-up question from Mr. Polandia. Is the Muslim product known as the science of hadith reliable in filtering and discerning the good hadith from the bad hadith? Go ahead and translate that.
Oke.
Basically, what he's asking is, what should we do with the science of hadith? Is it a good exercise of good hadith versus bad hadith? Is this a good exercise?
Ya, Mr. Polandia tadi bertanya ya, apakah ilmu mengenai hadis ini ya, menyaring ya hadis ini disaring, mana hadis yang baik, apa hadis yang buruk, apakah ilmu ini bagus nggak sih?
When they talk about good hadith, which is sahih, versus bad hadith, which is weak, when they talk about this, they're not talking about dates. They're not saying anything about which is from what century. They're talking about which is theologically good. It all has to do with theology, not anything to do with history.
Jadi ketika orang muslim menyaring hadis-hadis ini ya, yang bagus mereka masukkan sebagai sahih, kemudian hadis-hadis yang tidak baik itu sebagai hadis-hadis yang lemah ya, atau doif, itu orang-orang muslim ini tidak menggunakan pendekatan sejarah atau pendekatan tanggalnya. Ya, mereka tidak melihat itu. Mereka hanya melihat secara theological. Mana yang menurut teologi Islam itu baik, yaitu mereka hadis-hadis itu dimasukkan.
And the weak ones are the ones that don't fit their theology, and the strong ones are the ones that do fit their theology. But what I'm saying is, who cares? It's all so late that this is an Abbasid view of what is theologically correct. This is only a political maneuver. This is completely a political maneuver by the Abbasids to create the religion that they wanted. All of it was created in Baghdad, not in Mecca, not in Medina, as we're going to see.
Jadi mereka memasukkan hadis-hadis yang mereka sukai, yang cocok dengan teologi mereka sebagai hadis-hadis yang sahih. Hadis-hadis yang tidak cocok dengan teologi Islam itu mereka membuangnya atau memberikan melabelkan sebagai hadis doif, ya. Tetapi siapa yang peduli gitu ya? Ini kan kita tidak berhubungan dengan tanggal atau sejarahnya, ya. Jadi ini adalah bagaimana dinasti Abbasian tadi yang mulai berkuasa, ya. Dinasti Abbasian ini mulai memperkenalkan teologinya mereka sendiri tentang Islam ini. Jadi dinasti Abbasian ini yang membentuk agama Islam.
Okay, here's another
yang memperkenalkan
question
Islam kepada dunia secara luas.
from
Okay.
Mr. Kenosis. He says, are there any historical findings from Muhammad's lineage regarding his biological children? This question is to debunk those who live nowadays claiming that Muhammad's descendants, that they are the Muhammad's descendants, and that it goes up as the descendants of Ismail. Thank you. In other words, there's what Kenosis is saying is, what should we do say to those Muslims that we see here in Indonesia who say, oh, I am in the line of Muhammad from say so-and-so, from so-and-so all the way up to Muhammad himself?
Ya, jadi Kenosis ini bertanya ya, ada nggak sih sejarah ya, penemuan-penemuan sejarah mengenai garis keturunan Muhammad ini ya, atau Muhammad ini punya anak yang secara biologis ini dari mana? Karena banyak orang mengklaim, oh saya nih masih keturunan Muhammad dari sini ya, keturunan Muhammad nih masih keluarga Muhammad.
Now, I am going to debunk all of that as we go through this talk.
Saya akan membantah semua itu ya, klaim-klaim itu
So
selama kita ada di sesi ini.
I don't want to say too much yet because I have to prove what I'm going to say.
Oke, saya nggak mau berkata banyak ya, karena saya akan membuktikan apa yang saya katakan.
But as you're going to find,
Ya, Anda akan menemukan malam hari ini,
there is no reference to Muhammad in the 7th century, not until 692. You're going to see that I'm going to show you that. We don't know anything about a man named Muhammad at all, at least not the traditional Muhammad, the Muhammad that every Muslim knows. We don't know anything about him until 692, yet supposedly he died in 632. We know nothing about his lineage. We know nothing about Abu Bakr. We know nothing about Umar. We know nothing about Uthman. We know nothing about Ali, the first 4 caliphs. We cannot find one reference to any of them from the 7th century.
ya, pada malam hari ini saya akan menunjukkan ya bahwa kita tuh tidak tahu apa-apa ya tentang Muhammad yang hidup pada abad ke-7 ya, sampai pada tahun 692. Jadi sebelum tahun 692 kita tidak tahu apa-apa mengenai siapa itu Muhammad ya. Kemudian 4 khalifat pertama tadi ya, Abu Bakar, Umar, Utsman dan Ali, kita tidak tahu ya, tidak tahu apa-apa mengenai sejarah mereka sebelum tahun 692.
We're going to have to throw all of that out because there's nothing from the 7th century. Everything that we know about Muhammad, about Khadijah, his wife, everything we know about Ali, his adopted son, everything we know about anything we know about Abu Bakr, the first caliph, or Umar, the second caliph, or Uthman, the third caliph, or Ali, the fourth caliph, everything we know about those four rightly guided caliphs, everything we know about the Rashidun period, that golden period from 624 to 661, is completely fantastic. In other words, it is made up. There is not one piece of historical evidence for any of it.
Ya, jadi apa yang bisa kita ketahui mengenai siapa itu Muhammad, kemudian siapa itu Khadijah istrinya, ya kemudian mengenai 4 khalifat pertama tadi ya, mengenai Abu Bakar, Umar, Utsman, dan Ali, itu kita tidak tahu sama sekali, teman-teman. Juga mengenai periode zaman keemasan Islam, ya itu tidak tahu sama sekali, kita buta, tidak ada sejarah sebelum tahun 692.
But I'm only saying that because I haven't proved that. I've got to prove that, and it's going to take me hours upon hours and hours. We don't have time to do that today. We're going to have to come back and pick that up. But hold on, Kenosis. We're going to show you how that question is at the very root of what we're asking.
Ya, nanti ya pertanyaan itu akan dijawab, tapi nggak sekarang. Itu pertanyaan yang sangat-sangat mendasar sekali, pertanyaan yang bagus, Kenosis.
Okay, let's go on to Agus's question, which says, is the Doctrina Iacobi talking about Muhammad? I mean the historical version, not the faith version of Muhammad? Go ahead and translate that, the question that comes down from Agus.
Iya, pertanyaan dari Agus ya, apakah doktrin Yakobi yang berbicara mengenai Muhammad, maksudnya dia adalah sejarah ya.
We're going to actually debunk the Doctrina Iacobi, but not today. We don't have time today to do that. That's part of this talk. I'm going to destroy the Doctrina Iacobi. I'm going to destroy the Constitution of Medina. I'm going to destroy the Ashtenami letter. Every one of these supposed references to Muhammad from the 7th century, I'm going to shut down, and everything that I'm going to be using will be historical criticism. In other words, I'm going to be going back to the 7th century to shut all of these down. But not today. I can see this will take too long because of the back and forth with the English to translation.
Oke, ya, jadi saya akan membantah semua ya mengenai doktrin Yakobi ini dan semua yang menyatakan Muhammad ada di abad ke-7. Tapi tidak hari ini, teman-teman, akan menjadi terlalu panjang ya, karena kita juga akan menerjemahkannya dalam bahasa Indonesia. Go on, Brother Jay.
Okay, here's another question from Boanergis. He says, Mr. Smith, can we say that this religion, Islam, was established not by Muhammad himself, but by people who got inspired by his biography? Was there something to do with the political atmosphere that was taken by someone who tried to take a particular advantage, or was it because of faith crisis at that time? Okay. Go ahead.
Mr. Boanerges bertanya ya, Brother J ya, apakah kita bisa katakan bahwa agama ini, Islam, itu didirikan ya bukan oleh Muhammad sendiri, tetapi oleh orang-orang yang terinspirasi oleh biografinya Muhammad? Ataukah ini berkaitan dengan suasana politik pada waktu itu ya, kemudian seseorang ini mencoba mengambil keuntungan dari suasana politik ini, atau karena ada krisis iman pada waktu itu katanya?
This book here.
Ya, buku yang saya pegang ini.
Muhammad exist.
Apakah Muhammad itu pernah ada?
Robert Spencer.
Robert Spencer.
He wrote this book in 2012.
Dia menulis buku ini tahun 2012.
9 years ago.
9 tahun lalu.
Now, this book, when it came out, was enormously damaging and caused an enormous amount of anger all over the Muslim world.
Pada waktu buku ini pertama kali dikeluarkan, ini menyebabkan suatu kemarahan yang besar di kalangan Muslim pada waktu itu.
In the last year, in 2020,
tahun terakhir ini ya, tahun 2020,
we have been looking and unpacking and actually taking from this and moving beyond it. And what we have been doing is there's a team of us, there's about, I want to say between 10 and 15 of us who are working together all over the world. We're Zooming back and forth. We're Skyping back and forth. We're WhatsApping back and forth. But we're researching this very question that you're asking here. And that is, what do we know about Muhammad in the 7th century?
Ya, jadi ada tim dari kita ya, sekitar 10 sampai 15 orang ya, kita selalu kontak ya, selalu saling kontak nih. Kita selalu membicarakan apakah benar nih ada Muhammad pada waktu abad ke-7.
Because if everything we are dependent on for this man named Muhammad, for this religion called Islam, for these traditions of the sayings that he did and the life that he lived, if everything comes from the 9th and 10th century, which is 200 to 300 years later, that is too late. We need to go back to the 7th century. We need to go back to the century he lived. We need to go back to the century he spoke, and we need to find out who was this man.
Jadi kalau apa yang kita dapatkan dari kehidupan Muhammad ya, apa yang dia lakukan, apa yang dia katakan itu berasal dari 200 atau 300 tahun sesudah dia mati, kita tidak bisa tahu apa-apa ya. Kita harus kembali kepada abad ke-7 ya untuk mengetahui siapa sebenarnya Muhammad.
So, I am going to be introducing an enormous amount of material. I cannot do it today because I can see we've already gone an hour and a half and we've only just got through the introduction of it, but we're going to have to come back and do more and more and more. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce just the material that we have got in the last 10 years.
Oke, saya punya banyak materi ya, tapi nggak bisa dibicarakan ya, karena ini udah 1,5 jam. Saya akan memperkenalkan aja nih materi yang akan kita bicarakan nanti.
This book here is one of the most damaging books in the world today. It is called Seeing Islam as Others Saw It. Seeing Islam as Others Saw It, written by Dr. Robert Hoyland. Dr. Robert Hoyland, I'll say more about him.
Ya, ini buku ini ya, melihat Islam dari kacamata orang-orang lain ya. Ini buku yang juga paling membuat kerusakan yang cukup parah nih ya di dalam dunia Islam.
Dr. Robert Hoyland reads and writes 18 languages, all archaic languages.
Dr. Robert ya tadi dikatakan dia bicara dan menulis dalam 18 bahasa.
He was head of department at Oxford University, I think, when he wrote this book in 1997.
Dia itu kepala dari satu universitas yang cukup ternama ya di Amerika.
Not America, no, this is in England, in Oxford University.
Oh, in England. Oh ya, di Universitas Oxford, teman-teman, tahun 1997.
And what he did, because he could read and write all of these languages, he went back to all of these peoples. He went back to the 7th century. He went back to the same century that Muhammad lived and that supposedly Islam began. And he just asked, what did everybody know about this man Muhammad in that century?
Ya, karena dia bisa menulis dan membaca di dalam 18 bahasa, dia mulai meneliti dan menyelidiki lagi. Ya, dia mulai mencari tahu siapakah Muhammad ini pada waktu abad ke-7.
And what he found absolutely destroyed Islam.
Dan apa yang ditemukan ini sangat-sangat menghancurkan Islam.
He could not find anything about Muhammad.
Dia tidak menemukan satu hal pun tentang Muhammad.
He could not find anything about Mecca.
Dia tidak menemukan satu hal pun tentang Mekah.
He could not find anything about people called Muslims.
Dia tidak menemukan pada abad ke-7 ini ada orang yang disebut Muslim.
He could not find any reference to a religion called Islam.
Dia tidak menemukan satupun referensi mengenai agama Islam.
And he could not find anything about a book called the Quran.
Dan dia tidak menemukan satupun referensi mengenai kitab yang disebut Quran.
Those are the 5 things that really give us Islam. Without those 5 things, Islam falls to pieces.
5 hal ini, ya 5 hal inilah yang membuat kita mengenal ya apa itu agama Islam. Kalau tidak ada kelima hal ini, ya Islam ini berantakan nih ya.
So looking from a historical standpoint, he destroyed it with just this book. That was not his intention. He did not want to do that. He was not out to try to destroy Islam. He is nothing more than a linguist, a man who could speak many languages, but he spoke all the languages of the people who were in that area. He spoke Aramaic. He also spoke Nabatean Aramaic. He also read and wrote Arabic and Syriac and Hebrew. He also knew Pahlavi. All of these languages he knows to read and write. And so he was looking at all these documents in all these languages to see what they knew about Islam. and he could not find a thing.
Ya, hanya dengan satu buku ini saja dia sudah menghancurkan klaim-klaim Islam selama ini ya. Itu bukan maksud tujuannya dia menulis buku ini, tetapi dia hanya seorang linguis aja. Jadi dia bicara dalam berbagai bahasa. Dia menguasai Aramaik, menguasai Nabatian, menguasai bahasa Ibrani, bahasa Arab ya. Dia hanya mencari dokumen-dokumen ya sejarah pada waktu itu dengan pendekatan sejarah, dan dia tidak menemukan satupun referensi dari hal-hal yang Islam itu klaim tadi ya pada abad ke-7 itu tidak ditemukan sama sekali.
Now, I have just put up on the chat, I have just put up the name of my YouTube channel. It's called Fander Films. It starts with a P, Fander Films. I've just put it there on the chat. You can all read it there. Fander Films I started back in 2006 to confront this whole material. So go ahead and if you could just say something about I've got it written there, Fander Films.
Iya, teman-teman bisa ikuti ya YouTube-nya Brother J. Smith, Fander Films di sini ya. Ini YouTube Fander Films ini ya yang akan mengekspos ya semua material-material yang tadi sudah kita bicarakan.
YouTube started in 2005. I started my channel in 2006. So my channel has been going for 25 years now. Not 25 years, 15 years. What am I saying? For 15 years now. And it is primarily confronting the whole historicity of Islam.
Ya, jadi saya memulai YouTube channel saya tahun 2006 ya. YouTube kan baru mulai tahun 2005. Jadi udah hampir 15 tahun ya. Jadi materi-materi itu yang saya tampilkan di YouTube saya itu benar-benar ya benar-benar
if you go up to
melawan Islam.
If you go up to YouTube right now and you go up to Fander Films, you will see I just put up a video 10 hours ago on Mecca and Petra. Mecca and Petra. I'm confronting the city of Mecca right now.
Iya, kalau Anda pergi ke YouTube saya ya, baru 10 jam lalu saya upload satu video ya, Petra dan Mekah. Saya benar-benar menantang nih ya, Petra dan Mekah di situ. Saya memberikan materi saya di situ.
And already 3,000 people have watched that video in just 10 hours.
Ya, sudah ada 3.000 orang yang nonton ya, baru 10 jam yang lalu.
Now, what I have been doing, I have been confronting the whole historical critique. I have been confronting since 1995. So we're talking about 26 years now.
Jadi saya sudah melakukan kritik sejarah atau kritik histori ini selama 25 tahun ya.
But in the last year, 2020, so a year ago, that year 2020, everything seems to be coming to a head.
Jadi baru pada tahun 2020 ya, kayaknya banyak sekali nih materi yang terus saya kemukakan.
We have found so much new material in just the last year.
Saya menemukan banyak sekali materi-materi baru ya tahun lalu.
So that I brought Robert Spencer to come with me on my YouTube channel. I brought him and I asked him to interview him back in June of last year.
Ya, karena begitu banyak materi-materi yang baru yang kita dapatkan mengenai Islam, sampai saya memanggil Robert Spencer ini menjadi narasumber di dalam YouTube saya kira-kira Juni tahun lalu.
And I started introducing him to some brand new material that he'd never heard about.
Dan saya memperkenalkan kepada Robert Spencer tadi ya, materi-materi yang baru yang dia bahkan belum tahu.
So he went to his publisher and told them, and they say, you need to write a new book.
Lalu Robert Spencer pergi ke penerbitnya dan mereka berkata, wah kamu harus menerbitkan buku baru nih.
Which he did. And
ya, dia lakukan itu.
In December of last year, so we're talking about 3 or 4 months ago.
Ya, dari Desember tahun lalu.
And he then sent it to me by email. He wanted me to read it first and to see if it was good enough to then publish.
Ya, dia mau saya mereview apa tulisannya, dia email saya dan sebelum itu dipublish atau dicetak keluar.
I read it and I quickly got on the phone to him and I said, Robert, you're already out of date. You haven't looked at the coins. You haven't looked at the rock inscriptions. You don't even know who Ilyas ibn Qabisa is. You haven't put the newest material since July of last year. You haven't kept up with what we're now finding in just the last 6 months.
Ya, saya kemudian langsung telepon kepada Robert. Saya berkatakan, wah kamu udah ketinggalan gitu ya, udah ketinggalan jauh ya. Kamu tidak melihat materi-materi yang kita temukan 6 bulan ini sangat banyak ya. Kamu tidak melihat koin, inskripsi, ya.
And he said, well, what should I do? I've already sent it to the publishers.
Lalu Robert berkata, apa yang harus aku lakukan? Aku udah terlanjur kirim ke penerbit saya nih.
It's going to come out in July and it's already out of date. So I said to him, just publish every year. Just publish a new book every year and add the new material year by year by year by year, which he's going to do. Now,
ya, saya cuma mengatakan terus tambah materi baru, terbitin terus setiap tahun dan tambahkan materi-materi yang baru.
this material that I'm going to be introducing, I can't do it today. It's going to be too long. And I can see now this is going to take too long to do all this. But the material that we're going to be getting, that you're going to be getting, and I'll send you the PowerPoint, this material is so damaging, but it is so exciting because it is moving so quickly. We're getting so much new research done. We're having so many more people helping us with it. And we're all from many different countries. It's happening all over the world, but there are only a few of us that are actually getting it out in the public sphere. I am one of those. Hatun Tosh from England is another. Al Fadi from here in the United States is another. There's only about 3 of us. Then we have Mel and his whole team from Ireland. There's only about 4 of us who are actually putting this out into the public sphere.
Oke, materi-materi yang kita dapatkan ini ya sebenarnya dari seluruh dunia ya. Ada banyak orang yang membantu kita. Cuman yang bicara kepada publik itu paling baru saya, Sister Hatun Tash ya, kemudian ada Mel, kemudian ada Al Fadi di Amerika.
So we're going to be, because it's so much material, it's going to take too much time to do it in one session. I thought I could get through this very quickly. I'm not going to be able to just because there's too much already. But let's try to finish these questions at least for now.
Okay.
Okay, here is a question from Boanerges. Mr. Smith, can we say that this religion, Islam, was established not by Muhammad himself, but by people who got inspired by his biography? Was there something to do with the political atmosphere that was taken by someone who tried to take a particular advantage, or was it because of a faith crisis at that time? Go ahead if you could translate that.
Iya, jadi tadi ya pertanyaan dari Bu Nerges tadi, apakah kita bisa menyimpulkan bahwa sebenarnya Islam itu tidak di
Oh, you've translated? Okay, let me answer that. Boanerges,
bentuk oleh Muhammad ya, tapi karena situasi politik.
What we're going to find is that Islam that we have today is a political invention, which means it was created for political reasons, not theological reasons. It was created to give authority to the Abbasid Empire. It was begun with the Umayyads. I'm not saying that it didn't begin in the late 7th century. It was probably begun by Abdul Malik himself, because he is the first to introduce the name Muhammad. He is the first to introduce the name Muslim. He is the first to introduce the name Islam. He is the first to introduce Quranic script, but no Quran. He did not talk about Mecca. Mecca did not exist when he was in power from 685 to 705. But we're going to get into that. We're going to get into that.
Ya, jadi tadi Islam itu ya dikatakan dia muncul karena kepentingan politik pada waktu itu, pada zaman Abbasian ya. Tetapi kemungkinan ini Islam ini dimulai karena gerakan politik untuk menyatukan ya, untuk memberikan satu kuasa ya kepada dinasti Umayyah pada waktu itu. Nah, dinasti Umayyah ini yang mungkin memulai ya, pertama kali Abdul Malik ini memperkenalkan Islam, memperkenalkan Muslim, memperkenalkan Quran, walaupun pada waktu itu belum ada bukunya, tapi tidak menyinggung sama sekali Mekah ya. Mekah itu belum ada pada waktu itu.
Wow, Sophia, you are amazing. I could follow everything you said. You got all the names and the dynasties. You got it all in there. Well done. Wow, you're a good translator. I usually don't do these long material for the translators, but you're picking it all up. God bless you. You've got a real gift there. So you can go ahead and translate that too. They need to know how good you are. No,
thank you. They know I'm good.
I love your humility. Let's continue on. So here is the problem, Boanerges. Because of the fact that it is a political invention, because of the fact that, as we're going to see, and I'm jumping the gun, I feel kind of bad because I'm not proven that yet. I'm going to prove that in the upcoming talks. But because what we now know today, that it is a political invention to create a authority for a group of people who are not from Arabia. They are actually from what is today Iraq and Iran. They are Persian. Islam is a Persian entity. It is actually as Persian as you can get. And so all of these names like Abu Bakr, I'm sorry, not Abu Bakr, Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, Ibn Dawud, these are all Persian names. They are all from Iraq, and they are from Azerbaijan, and they're from what is today from Tabaristan, which is what is today Iran. So you're going to find all of this is from much further north and much further east.
Yeah, you are too long, brother.
Okay, let's break
Yeah.
that down. Let's break that down. So everything we're going to see as in the upcoming talks is this is a political enterprise by Persians.
Jadi semua ini adalah gerakan politik ya, gerakan politik yang sebenarnya adalah sangat-sangat jauh ya di Irak sana ya, di Persia. Jadi Islam ini sebenarnya sangat-sangat Persia sekali gitu ya. Jadi semua nama-nama tadi yang disebutkan itu sebenarnya adalah orang-orang bukan orang-orang Arab ya, tapi orang Persia.
All of these people that I have referred today, Ibn Hisham, Al-Waqidi, Al-Bukhari, Sahih Muslim, this guy named Al-Tabari, none of them are from Arabia. They are all from what is today Iraq and Iran.
Ya, jadi atau orang-orang nama-nama besar yang tadi saya sebutkan ya, Ibn Hisham, Al-Tabari, Al-Bukhari, ya, Sahih Muslim dan sebagainya itu semuanya itu bukan orang-orang Arabia ya, tapi orang-orang Iran, Irak yang sekarang.
And that's why much of what you're going to hear will be the first time you've heard it.
Ya, karena itu apa yang kalian dengar pada malam hari ini mungkin baru pertama kali teman-teman dengar.
Hold on, I have to prove that, so I don't want to jump ahead of what I've already shared with you.
Oke, saya nggak mau langsung lompat ya. Kita lihat dulu di sini.
Robert Redford asked me this question. I've read a research, I forgot by who, about the Battle of Tours in 732. There is not a single French writer to the historian at the time that the invaders were Muslim. They are called Saracen. Even the banner of the Islamic army during the tour of the Tours did not contain any Islamic symbols. Can you confirm that, Jay? The answer is yes, you are correct. They did not have Islamic symbols at the Battle of Tours, which is in 732, which is during the Umayyad dynasty. In fact, what we're going to find out is that almost everything they had was certainly was political, but it was not theological. They did not come with the traditions or with the Quran in their hand, because the Quran was just being formed at the time of 732.
Robert Redford chatting pribadi tadi ya. Saya nggak baca chatnya, pertanyaannya di chat.
I'm sorry?
I didn't see his chat. I didn't see his question.
Oh, is that
Yeah.
just a direct message to me? Okay. Whenever you write a question, make sure it's so everybody can read it. Robert Redford, can you make? Okay. What he's saying is, in the Battle of Tours in 732, in 732 what he has heard in his research, that the invaders were not called Muslims, they were called Saracens, which is true. That is the name, and we're going to get into that. I haven't got into that yet. They never call themselves Muslims. They call them Saracens or Muhajirun, or they call themselves Ishmaelites, or they call themselves Hagarins.
Ya, jadi di dalam perang Tur tadi ya yang ditanyakan oleh Robert Redford itu memang tidak disebut Muslim ya, mereka menyebutnya Saracen ya. Ada Saracen, ada tadi apa tuh tadi J. Smith. Brother Jay, what again? Saracen?
Saracen, Muhajirun, which means people who are in Exodus or movement. They call themselves Hagarins because they're from the line of Hagar, and they call themselves Ishmaelites because they're in the line of Ishmael.
Oke, disebut Hagarin juga, disebut orang turunan Ismail juga.
The other name, the fifth name, they call themselves with Magre, which Magre means people of Hagar, people of like Hagarins, the same thing.
Ya, kata kelima adalah Magare, jadi orang-orang yang dari keturunan Hagar ya.
And that's all from this book. That's all come out from his research. And that's why it was so devastating in 1997 when he introduced this to the world. And he said, listen, folks, there are no Muslims in the 7th century.
Ya, itulah yang tadi ditulis di dalam buku ini ya, teman-teman. Makanya dia mengatakan, dengar nih teman-teman ya, tidak ada yang namanya Islam atau Muslim pada abad ke-7.
Now, in 730, which is the 8th century, as they're moving up into France, up into Battle of Tours is in France, they had already taken over Spain. They were now beginning to call themselves Muslims, but look at that is 100 years after Muhammad.
Ya, pada waktu mereka mulai perang ya ke daerah Prancis di sana ya, itu setelah mereka menaklukkan Spanyol, mereka baru mulai menyebut dirinya Muslim, tapi itu ratusan tahun setelah Muhammad mati.
We'll be getting into that, so I don't want to jump the gun again, but thanks for your question. Here's another one by Bukan Ahmad. Shalom Mekan. Shalom Malikum Salam. I want to ask if the Quran was actually written in Aramaic language, is it true or not? Because I read Gabriel Sama book that said the Quran was written in Aramaic language. Yes.
Oke, Bukan Ahmad mengatakan ya, saya mau tanya apakah Quran itu sebenarnya ditulis dalam bahasa Aramaik, benar apa enggak? Karena saya membaca dari Gabriel Sama, bukunya Gabriel Sama, bahwa Quran itu sebenarnya ditulis dalam bahasa Aramaik.
Yes, you are correct. It is called Nabatean Aramaic. This book has come out in the last 2 years, written by Mark Dury, the Quran and its biblical reflexes, and he also makes that mention. Now Gabriel Sama did not do the research. The man who did the research on this is Al-Jalad. Al-Jalad is his name.
Jadi Gabriel Sama benar ya tadi ya bahwa ditulis dalam bahasa Aramaik, tapi dia bukanlah yang pertama kali meneliti hal ini ya. Al-Jalad ini yang pertama kali menyelidiki bahwa Quran ini ditulis dalam bahasa Aramaik.
And what he found out is when you look at the Quran here, look at the Arabic in the Quran. If you look at the Arabic in the Quran, this is the Arabic, this is the earliest Quran according to Islamic tradition. This is the Hafs Quran.
Ya, ini Qurannya versi Hafs ya, ini adalah Quran yang mula-mula yang diklaim oleh Muslim.
It has the Tar Marbuta, and I'm looking for an Alif Maksura. Where's there an Alif Maksura here? So Tar Marbuta and the Alif Maksura, I don't see anything right here. Alif Maksura, the S shape, the Alif Maksura and the Tar Marbuta are all through the Quran. Also, the definite article. So here is the definite article right there. Al. Okay, there's the definite article. Okay, there's the Tar Marbuta right there. There's the Tar Marbuta. So when you see these ending of words, like the Alif Maksura, the Tar Marbuta, or the Al, which is the beginning, the definite article, that is all through the Quran, but that is not the Arabic that was spoken in Mecca and Medina. That is not the Arabic that was spoken in the Hijaz where Muhammad would have lived.
Ya, jadi kalau Anda lihat tadi ya, ada akhirannya, ada definite article al juga di situ, jadi ada awalnya, prefiksnya ya. Tetapi itu sebenarnya bukanlah dia.
Those endings, the Alif Maksura, the Tar Marbuta, and the definite article are from Nabatean Aramaic. Are you there, Sophie?
Dialek yang digunakan di Mekah atau Medina.
So where is Nabatean Aramaic spoken? Way
ya,
up in the north.
Ini? Oke, jadi mereka menggunakan bahasa Aramaik Nabatean ya, itu jauh di sebelah utara.
The Nabateans is where Petra is, the city of Petra, which is in today Jordan.
Nabatea ini adanya di Petra ya, yang sekarang ini Yordania.
That's 600 miles further north.
Itu 600 mil ya ke lebih jauh di arah utara.
Nabatean Aramaic only has 16 letters. 16 letters.
Ya, huruf-huruf Nabatean Aramaik ini hanya mempunyai 16 huruf.
This Arabic that we use today now has 28 letters.
Arabik yang digunakan sekarang itu ada 28 hurufnya.
Nabatean Aramaic was so crude, was so barbaric that really people could not read it back in the 7th century.
Ya, huruf-huruf Nabatean ini masih sangat-sangat kuno ya, Nabatean Aramaik ini, sehingga orang-orang yang itu tidak banyak yang bisa membacanya.
And that's why they had to add dots and vowels, the irabs and the harakats.
Ya, jadi mereka harus menambahkan harakatnya ya, untuk bisa bacanya mereka harus menambahkan titik-titik tanda bacanya itu.
But that was only done in the 8th century.
Tapi itu baru dilakukan pada abad ke-8.
There was no dots and vowels in the 7th century.
Tidak ada titik-titik dan tanda bacanya, tanda huruf hidupnya itu pada abad ke-7.
That's why the Arabic had to evolve with the Quran from the 7th up to the 8th up to the 9th century.
Karena itu ya Quran ini juga pasti akan mengalami perubahan-perubahan sesuai dengan hurufnya yang mengalami juga perubahan ya dari abad ke-7, abad 8 sampai abad ke-9.
So Gabriel Sama is correct. The Quran that we have in the Arabic we have in the Quran today is the wrong Arabic for Muhammad, is the wrong Arabic for Arabia, is the wrong Arabic for Mecca and Medina.
Ya, jadi Gabriel Sama tadi benar ya bahwa Quran yang kita punya ini bukanlah Quran yang sebenarnya pada waktu zaman Muhammad, pada waktu Mekah, Madinah ya. Pada waktu itu tidak sama.
Another talk, another day. We're jumping the gun. We're getting ahead. I can see some of you have been watching my videos, so you know this material from before.
Ya, oke.
Here's another question from Edwin. In the era of Muhammad, the currency used with the Sassanid coins, which has the logo of the Persian Zoroastrian king and has a picture of Zura Mazda on it. Are there any criticisms or conflicts of Islam with Zoroastrian teachings? I love these questions, but you guys
Ya, dari Edwin ya
you're going
tadi.
way ahead. You're getting ahead of me.
Iya, ini pertanyaannya udah pertanyaan kelas lanjut nih ya. Bukan pertanyaan yang mendasar ya. Jadi di era Muhammad tadi Edwin mengatakan apakah mata uang yang digunakan itu adalah koin-koin Sasanid ya. Yang mana punya logo yaitu Raja Zoroastrian Persia ya dan mempunyai gambar Azura Mazda di situ.
Yeah.
Apakah ya ada kritik nggak mengenai hal ini?
Edwin, can we hold that question until the next time? Because I'm about ready to get into the coins, but it would take too long to do that today. So hold on to that question. You are correct. All the coins in the East are Zoroastrian. All the coins in the West are Christian. There are no coins that are Islamic, not in the 7th century. We can't find one coin that is Islamic until 692. 692. But hold on to that question until we come back next time.
Iya, pertanyaannya ditahan dulu ya Edwin ya karena kita belum masuk nih ke pembicaraan mengenai masalah koin-koin ya tadi, tapi benar ya di daerah timur digunakan koin-koin Zoroastrian dan di daerah barat digunakan koin-koin Kristen. Nggak ada koin-koin Islam yang ditemukan pada abad ke-7 sampai tahun 692.
Here's a question from Lefty. There is a huge time gap between Muhammad time and Al-Bukhari and the first complete Quran and all of the history of Muhammad. What happened between those years? Lefty, hold on. I can't answer that. Otherwise, I'll be here for 3 hours and we're already coming up on 2 hours. So hold on to that question. That will be answered, but you're just going to have to wait because we just don't have enough time today to do that.
Okay.
Let's go on.
You want to the next slide or?
No, I think we're going to have to stop there because this is, I realize we're coming up to 2 hours and the next section is huge and it's going to take us at least 2 hours to do the next section. So let's bring it down to, let's just see if there's any last questions here by Jason Melvino. Is it true that Muhammad's name means praiseworthy? Because in their book that Muhammad's name does not include family name, surname, but instead a single name like a title, which is praiseworthy or God. Is that true? Go ahead and ask the question.
Iya, jadi Jason Melvino tadi bertanya ya, apakah benar ya nama Muhammad ini artinya yang terpuji ya? Karena di dalam kitabnya Muhammad ini tidak disertakan nama keluarganya ya, nggak ada Muhammad bin Abdullah gitu ya. Tetapi hanya namanya disebutkan Muhammad aja. Ya, seperti gelar ya yang artinya adalah yang terpuji atau ini adalah merupakan gelar daripada Tuhan. Apakah hal ini benar?
And that is exactly correct. You've got it right, Jason. Muhammad is not a name, it's a title. It means the praised one. So Muhammad is always the praised one. So which means, and when we see it on the coins, when Abdul Malik introduces it in 691 on the coins, when he introduces it on the Dome of the Rock in 692, when he introduces it on the Caliphal Protocol, is this a name?
Ya, jadi tadi Jason Brother J mengatakan benar ya, Muhammad ini bukanlah nama tapi gelar ya ketika Abdul Malik memperkenalkannya tahun 691 ya itu di Dome of the Rock jadi di Yerusalem. Dia memperkenalkan juga di koin tahun 692 ya. Ini semuanya adalah merupakan gelar ya bukan sebuah nama pada waktu itu.
Well, this is, as you're going to see, I'm going to be getting into this. Hold on to that question because I'm going to talk about the Dome of the Rock. I'm going to talk about the coins. I'm going to talk about the Caliphal protocols. I'm going to show you even where Muhammad is mentioned in the Quran, the 4 times where we see the name Muhammad. I'm going to dispute whether or not that has anything to do with the man named Muhammad. I believe, as you're finding, that this means the praised one. Who is the praised one? Hold on. And we'll answer that question.
Ya, ditahan dulu ya. Kita belum sampai ke sana ya. Siapakah ini yang arti yang terpuji ini ya? Nanti saya akan bicara mengenai koin, saya akan bicara mengenai kalifat, saya akan bicara mengenai the Dome of the Rock. Tapi ditahan dulu nih. Jangan dijawab dulu. Nanti saya akan membuka semua. Siapa sih yang dimaksud dengan yang terpuji ini atau Muhammad ini di dalam Quran? 4 kali namanya disebut di dalam Quran.
So after Muhammad died, was Islam stagnant or even dying and then introduced by the Abbasid dynasty? How about this, according to Pak Bagus?
Ya, Pak Bagus bertanya setelah Muhammad mati, apakah Islam ini stagnan ya atau berkembang? Menurut Brother J, seperti apa ini setelah Muhammad mati ini?
Well, as you're going to find out, it had nothing to do with the Umayyads. There was no Muhammad, there was no Mecca, there was no Muslims, there was no Islam. We don't know of any book called the Quran. None of that existed in the 7th century when it should have been existed. This is all begun by Abdul Malik. You're going to find that out. It was then enlarged and added to by the Umayyads, but it's the Abbasids who come in 749. It's the Abbasids who give us the Islam that we have today.
Ya, jadi kalau kita tadi melihat ya, tidak ada nih pada abad ke-7 ya tentang Muhammad ya mengenai Muslim dan sebagainya. Kita tidak punya referensi pada abad ke-7, tetapi Abdul Malik yang memperkenalkannya ya, kemudian dinasti Umayyah ini kemudian menyebarluaskannya yang menjadi lebih besar lagi, tapi dinasti Abbasian lah yang menyebabkan Islam ini diperkenalkan secara luas.
Okay, we're coming up to 2 hours. We'll have to stop there because I do need to get to another appointment. I just realized I'm supposed to be somewhere at 11 o'clock. But listen, these are good questions. You're starting to see that everything we're looking at has to be tested by history.
Oke, tadi ini ya bagus sekali ya, tapi saya harus pergi ini ya. Kita sudahi saja 2 jam ini. Tetapi ini kita perlu pertanyaan-pertanyaan sangat bagus ya, bahwa segala sesuatu ini kita harus mengujinya dengan sejarah.
I don't want to know about the Jesus of the 3rd or 4th or 5th century. I want to know about the Jesus of the 1st century. In the same token, I want to know about Muhammad from the 9th and 10th century. I want to know about the Muhammad from the 7th century. This is what we should ask of any religion, of anyone, anywhere.
Ya, saya tidak mau tahu ya mengenai Yesus pada abad ke-3, 4 atau 5. Ya, kita juga dengan patokan yang sama ya, maka kita juga tidak mau mengetahui Muhammad dari abad ke-9 atau ke-10. Kita mau mengetahui siapa Muhammad ini pada abad ke-7. Nah, pertanyaan inilah yang seharusnya kita pertanyakan ya kepada semua orang ya, di mana saja, yang memeluk agama apa saja.
So far, everything you have heard about Muhammad, everything you have heard about what he said and did, what he did is from this book. This is the book that everybody has to read all over the world.
Ya, jadi apa yang bisa kita tahu mengenai siapa Muhammad, bagaimana kehidupan Muhammad, apa yang dia lakukan, itu semua.
But this book was written in 833, 200 years too late.
Semua berasal, jadi saya menyatakan buku ini dibaca oleh semua orang.
We don't have the original manuscript.
Kita tidak punya manuskrip yang asli.
That only appears in the 11th century, which is another 200 years after that.
Ya, baru ada sekitar abad ke-11 ya, 200 tahun lagi nih setelah itu.
Can you see much of what we know about Islam today comes from the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th century.
Ya, jadi apa yang kita ketahui mengenai Islam ini didapat dari abad ke-9, ke-10, 11, 12, dan 13 ya setelah itu.
But that is a political Muhammad. That is a theological Muhammad a theological Muhammad that is really a political Muhammad.
Tapi itu adalah teologi daripada Muhammad yang dimasukkan ke dalam politik.
That's why I'm not interested in that Muhammad. I'm not interested in that Islam. I want to know the Muhammad of the 7th century. I want to know the Muhammad that actually existed. Now, that's what we're going to be doing. I thought I'd be able to get through it more so today. We're going to have to break it up into smaller pieces.
Oke, jadi tadi saya tidak mau tahu ya mengenai Muhammad tadi yang abad ke-9 tadi yang ada dalam gerakan politik ini yang dimasukkan sebagai political tadi ya, movement tadi. Tapi saya mau tahu siapa sebenarnya Muhammad ini pada abad ke-7 gitu ya. Siapa sebenarnya Muhammad ini? Tapi ini menjadi terlalu panjang ya. Jadi nanti kita akan bagi sesi-sesinya nih pada sesi-sesi berikutnya lagi.
Okay, so we will stop there for today because there's an awful lot more that we need to go into to actually help you understand what's going on next. What I'm going to do the next time we come back, what we're going to do is we're going to actually then look at the coins. We're going to start with the coins. That's a huge section. That's an enormous amount of material. So let's come back. When we come back again, we'll then introduce the coins, because the coins will show that there is no Muhammad in the 7th century. There is no Islam in the 7th century. There is no people called Muslims or a book called the Quran. There are no people. There's no one called Abu Bakar, Umar, Uthman, or Ali. None of this exists in the 7th century.
Ya, jadi pada sesi berikutnya nanti saya akan bicara mengenai masalah koin ya. Kalau kita bicara mengenai masalah koin ini materinya banyak sekali ya. Jadi akan menjadi salah satu materi yang cukup panjang ya. Kalau kita melihat dari materi kedua nanti yang akan saya bicarakan mengenai koin, kita akan melihat bahwa tidak ada Muhammad pada abad ke-7 ya. Kemudian juga tidak ada Islam, tidak ada referensi mengenai Abu Bakar, Umar, Ali pada abad ke-7. Kita tidak tahu itu.
So everything that I'm going to say, what we're going to do is we're going to then look at the coins. We're going to look at the rock inscriptions. Those are the two most devastating. And the reason why they're devastating is because they are from the 7th century. These are coins. We're only looking at coins from the 7th century. We're only going to look at rock inscriptions from the 7th and 8th century. So we're going back to that period, back to that time, back to that place.
Ya, jadi nanti kita akan melihat ya inskripsi pada koin, kemudian inskripsi pada batu-batu. Kenapa dua materi ini yang paling sangat merusak ya sejarah mengenai Islam? Ya, karena kita kembali lagi kepada materi-materi koin pada abad ke-7, kita hanya akan melihat pada abad ke-7, kemudian inskripsi pada batu-batu dari abad ke-7 dan abad ke-8. Jadi kita akan kembali ke era itu, kepada zaman Muhammad pada waktu itu, kita akan melihat bukti-bukti sejarahnya.
Now, we're going to stop there. We need to applaud you, Sophia. You've done an amazing job. I don't know of anybody that can remember so much as you do, names, dates, and places, and get it exactly correct after I go on for 5 minutes before I stop.
Yeah, thank you.
And then we're going to ask Brother Adam if he will please close us down, close us with prayer.
Yeah, Brother Adam Seeker, do you want to close?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so very much for this opportunity. Father, thank you so very much for this blessed time that you have given us, Lord. Lord, thank you so very much. Lord, allow this session to go out to millions and millions of Muslims so that they would understand what problems that they would have, the issues that they would have, and their scholars have lied with them. And they could get out of the darkness and the deception, because there's nothing in Islam that can save them. Because the only one who can save is Lord Jesus, who came for us, died for us, and gave us the salvation, eternal salvation. Through him we are saved. Lord, allow J. Smith to even get more and more information to debunk this claim and destroy this tree from the roots once and for all, Lord. Lord, what we are doing is nothing, because we are nothing. You are the one who is allowing us to reach to those people, Lord. Lord, bless the ministry of J. Smith. Bless the people who are working with him. Lord, bless this session. Lord, bless this YouTube channel that you have allowed us to speak to these people so that we could show them the truth, which is in you, Lord. Lord, in your holy Son's name, I pray. Amen.
Amen and amen. Well, thank you. I'll leave it back over to you.
Thank you so much,
Brother Jay. Would
Okay.
love
And
to see you again.
we hope we will have another class next with you.
We'll do that. We'll set it up. I'll set it up with Chris or Hannah, and we'll make sure we get back, and we'll let you know when that is. When the next time we come back, we'll go into the coins, and you're going to see how devastating the coins are concerning about this religion called Islam. Until then,
Yes.
God bless you.
Okay. God bless you. See you next
God
time.
bless you.
Bye-bye.